Things are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad here.
Hey! Welcome everybody to AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. How are you all doing today, everybody? I hope you all had a wonderful and fun-filled weekend. I know I had one that's a little bit more relaxing, but then again, relaxing ones are very well needed, and they're always nice. I mean, sometimes, like, having a fun weekend is always great, but then again, when you have a relaxing one, it's like, you know, it feels rewarding as well. It's also very nice. But anyways, what the fridge am I rambling on? We're here for the madness. We are here for the craziness. And let me tell you, with what I have over here, just a little warning that this may be a little bit of a shorter episode than usual, because I only have 4 stories to cover for today instead of the usual 5. But let me tell you, these 4 big ones, oh man, there's a lot to go and discuss. Like, we have some very significant news that we are about to get into. So in a way, it's not going to be big in length or quantity, but it's certainly going to be big in terms of what we shall be discussing. This will be a quantity over quality episode that we have over here. So this is going to be a heck of a fun one that we shall get into. But before we do even start that one, there is something that I would like to go and discuss. Now, as I am recording this, this is a bit of a last minute news to go and add on to. I didn't really have time to fully jump into it or like fully research what's been going on. Like, it just broke, it just came out, and I think honestly, yeah, it really is worth discussing. And unfortunately, this is a very, very tragic one that occurred. Now, this is actually in regards to Shafrillas. Now, chances are, if you're listening or watching this, then you also watch some of the videos of Shafrillas, rather it be his YouTube poops, rather it be his video essays, or even very recently, you saw what he just came out with, this massive reanimation collab project, in which a whole bunch of animators came together to recreate Be Our Guest from the 1991 masterpiece Beauty and the Beast. Well, unfortunately, what happened was that on Sunday, it seemed that there was a massive car accident that occurred with not just James, but also a few others that were there as well. In fact, it was actually the entire Shafrillas group. So there was James, his brother Patrick, and his friend Chris, in which all 3 of them were the formation of Shafrillas. Now, unfortunately, this car accident was massive, and it is extremely unfortunate to report that both Patrick and Chris did not make it. They have sadly passed away. And as for James, on the other hand, apparently it's been said that he is in critical condition, and according to one of his editors, or one of his current editors, so far, all the Shafrillas projects are going to be put on hold until we know what is the current status of James, or how will James continue forward. Now, I'm sure that regardless of what the outcome is going to be, I'm sure this is going to be very horrific and very tragic for James, rather if he's going to make it out alive or not, because 2 significant people in his life are just completely gone no matter what, and how he's going to move forward is going to be all up to him. And just hearing like what has occurred to what could debatably be one of, if not the most popular cartoon reviewer on the internet, it's just it's just heartbreaking to hear. And I mean, this is something that no person should ever go and experience, but I mean, I'm honestly hoping for the best right now for James. Especially, like, I know that I've made some past pretty nasty comments about his content and his takes and stuff like that. But I mean, I've already settled my differences with James. Like I've already talked with him personally, and I mean, it's all water under the bridge. And I mean, we're both cool. But yeah, I mean, I definitely do feel sorry for what has happened to him. I hope that he can recover, that his whole family can recover from the entire accident, and for Chris and Patrick to rest in peace. This is yeah, it's just a really shocking thing that we're pretty much hearing right now. And I do understand how this is a moment that the entire cartoon community, the animation community as well, and just for like for people online, it's just like very shocking to hear. Again, it's something that no one should ever experience in their lives. And yeah, like it's got, I can imagine that if things do go well for James, like I can imagine it'll probably take him time to go and fully recover from like everything, not just physically but also mentally. But I don't know, man. I'm just really hoping for the best for that guy. My God, just hearing about it, it's just like it kind of did like throw off my groove for the podcast a little bit. But it's just like you don't want to hear about that towards anyone, and especially for someone whom I have interacted with before, and like who's like a prominent figure in the animation community. It's just I don't know, man. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, again, I hope I wish James and his entire family the best of luck, and for a well-needed recovery, and for Chris and Patrick to just rest in peace. I mean, again, this was all last-minute news. I know I sound pretty unprepared to go and talk about this, but it's like, keep in mind, everything about this, it just came out fresh. And I mean, I just don't know how we can go and just move forward. It's just, it's crazy. So anyways, now that I do have that out of the way, just to get that out of my system. All right, so now that we have that done, I know it seems pretty awkward to just move forward after that. So I just want to go and ask everyone, are you all ready for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Oh, let's see. Yeah. Okay, so you are still prepared, but you know what? I do need a little bit of time to go and actually discuss about the first story that we have over here. So I think honestly at this point, I think it's a perfect time to go, and we will take a break so that, you know, we could soak in what we have discussed, and then we could be ready to move forward with the next story, while at the same time I can go and hit the reset button onto the ads that would pop up. So at least we won't have any ads interrupting me in the middle of my conversation for the first subject. So hold still, people. Let's go and sink in what we have learned, and then we will be ready to get things started. Okay, so we all had a little bit of a break. We all had time to breathe. So I believe with all that said and done, it is now time that we shall go and get things started. And with our first story that we have for today. Now, recently we have been talking about award season, and we have been looking back into several awards that have put up their nominations and even put up their wins, including the Golden Globes and the Annie Awards. But those are all side pieces and appetizers. Now, it is the time that we shall be looking into the main course of award season, the big show of them all, the most prominent of movie awards out of all of them. And of course, oh yeah, Jay Monty is pretty excited for that. I can hear that. Thank you for the subscription, by the way. But yes, without further ado, it is now time that we shall go and talk about the nominations of the Academy Awards. Yes, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences has officially revealed the nominations for the 95th Annual Academy Awards, and they are promising to be quite a competitive year, especially with the movies that have been nominated for Best Picture. So just going down the list, taken from my source on Oscars.org, the official website. Where the fridge are you? Hold on a sec. There it is. It's kind of weird that the website would go into alphabetical order, and not even alphabetical order. They're just going with like the main word. Like they're not even counting best or stuff like that. Like I have to go down like after makeup, music, best song, and then suddenly best picture. It's like, what the fridge? Like, can you go with the regular order, please? Nah, but in all seriousness, though, the nominations for Best Picture include All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking. So these are all the movies that are nominated for Best Picture. Now, if we go and move forward to what would be the ones that would get the most nominations out of them all, just switching on here to the Wikipedia page for the 95th Academy Awards, well, it looks like on this list over here, we actually have a pretty prominent number over here, where like now it seems like all over the place, where we have several movies that have a whole bunch of big nomination numbers. And the one topping them all off is Everything Everywhere All at Once, with a grand total of 11 nominations this year, which is then followed by All Quiet on the Western Front and The Banshees of Inisherin, in which they have 9 nominations each, followed by Elvis with 8, Fabelmans with 7, Tar and Top Gun Maverick with 6, Black Panther Wakanda Forever with 5, Avatar: The Way of Water with 4, Babylon, The Batman, Triangle of Sadness, and The Whale nominated for 3 Oscars. And finally, Living and Women Talking are both nominated for 2. But what we will be discussing here is not necessarily all the other nominations. Like, yeah, we could talk about all the other categories all day long and talk about the chances of either Everything Everywhere All at Once or Top Gun Maverick or Wakanda Forever or The Fabelmans. What are their odds that they're gonna go and win the Oscar and stuff like that? But what I'm gonna be focusing primarily shall be in regards to the animation categories. So if we go ahead and look into first off the visual effects category, technically it would count as animation, considering that this is one in which artists and animators do work on. The nominees for Best Visual Effects this year are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Batman, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and Top Gun Maverick. Now, with that said, let us go and move on for Best Animated Short. And the nominees for those are The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, The Flying Sailor, Ice Merchants, My Year of Dicks, and An Ostrich Told Me the World is Fake and I think I believe it. Quite a mouthful right there. You know, speaking of Shafrillas, that does sound like a YouTube poop that Shafrillas would go and make. Like, give him some, give him like a Donald Duck cartoon that has that art, that has the ostrich, and like that would be his title. An ostrich told Donald Duck the world is fake, and he thinks he believes it. Okay, but all jokes aside, let us now go. Oh, and by the way, thank you for the subscription, DJ Lol5. Good on you. Thank you so much on that. Oh, and apparently a hype train could happen if more subscribers can occur. But anyways, the moment we have been waiting for, like, yeah, we got those nominations, but what about the big one? The big one that animation fans really want to hear about. That's right, we got Best Animated Feature. And the nominees are Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, The Sea Beast, and Turning Red. And those are the 5 big animation categories. Yes. Thank you, Juju, for the extra. Oh, no, it was a gifted one from Jay Monty. Oh, very nice of you. But anyways, yes, those are the big animated movies that have been nominated. And I just gotta say that honestly, with this list, I'm pretty satisfied with it. Honestly, I almost predicted every single one. Like, I got 4 out of the 5 of them correct. And I mean, all of these are just fantastic. Like, for me, like 3 of my favorite animated features, or 3 of what I consider to be the best animated movies of last year, they're already there. Like Turning Red, Puss in Boots, and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Great choices. Definitely deserve to have the nomination. And of course, you got Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, which I will be watching it soon. Like, I am prepared for it. Don't worry. Like, all I need to do is actually put in the effort to watch it, which I will. I promise I will do so before the Oscars do show up in March. But considering that's the big indie movie, yo, and we got more subscriptions happening. Thank you so much right there. But as I was saying, considering that Marcel is the big indie animated feature that's so far becoming a dominant force during award season, so that's great to see. And then we have The Sea Beast, and that one, I gotta say, is the most surprising of them all. If there is one big surprise or one big thing I did not expect at all, is for The Sea Beast to actually be nominated for Best Animated Feature, which makes things very interesting for Netflix, because now this year they don't have just 1 but 2 animated films nominated for Best Animated Feature. So it'll be interesting to see how that will spice things up for the competition when the when the Oscars will happen. But I will say with The Sea Beast, it was a massive surprise. I did not expect that out of all the movies out there, or even out of all of Netflix movies, The Sea Beast would end up climbing up the ranks to go and actually find itself in a legitimate competition, like to actually be up against Turning Red and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio and Marcel and stuff like that. So that is kind of very surprising to see. But then again, maybe it shouldn't be surprising, considering the fact that with The Sea Beast, it has been stated to actually break the record to be the most watched original animated feature on Netflix. Now, rather if that means that it's like the most watched animated movie that's made by Netflix Animation, or if it means that it's like the most watched original animated film on Netflix, in which it would include the ones that Netflix has imported, like The Mitchells vs. the Machines and stuff like that. There's no conclusive answer to that, but it is true technically that not Turning Red, but with The Sea Beast, that one did actually make it amongst the top 10 most watched movies on Netflix in 2022. So with that in hand, I guess the popularity boost did end up benefiting well for Oscar season, to the point where it finds itself with a nomination. Now, for me, honestly, I don't 100% agree with it. I mean, yeah, it is a good movie, but there were others that I definitely do prefer. Like, honestly, maybe this is a bit of a not a bad take, but maybe this is a bit of a hot take. I actually prefer Lightyear over The Sea Beast. And if I would go and replace The Sea Beast with another movie to be nominated, personally, I would go with Wendell and Wild. I think that one deserved to have the nomination more so than The Sea Beast. But then again, this is not to go and take down The Sea Beast. This is not to say that film is bad. Like, I still find it to be a good movie as is. I just don't find it to be as good as many of the others. I would personally say is probably the weakest of all the nominations here, but still, this is not to take its credit away from the nomination that it did get. So that's just, my little thoughts on it. But overall, though, still a very solid choice. We're still very much happy to see all these movies actually get nominated. Now, in terms of who is going to win, now, normally this would be the part where I would just go and like cut things short and just say, oh, it's easily going to be Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Yeah, that's definitely going to win. No problem. I don't think that may be the case with the Oscars. I got a feeling that the Oscars is telling a little bit of a different story. Now, if I may go and discuss about a big Oscar snub, the one thing that is also as surprising as the Sea Beast getting a nomination is how Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is nominated for Best Animated Feature and nothing else. Because when you look at all the other award shows during this year, or at least during this award season, you may notice that Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio would usually grab itself 3 nominations, a little bit like a standard, where that movie would be nominated for not just Best Animated Feature, but for Best Score and for Best Original Song. Like, usually that whole package would be guaranteed everywhere. Now, even though there was a low chance, that Pinocchio would win the musical categories, like, it was pretty clear that a lot of people really did pick Pinocchio as their big animated favorite. You know, we've seen this with the Golden Globe Awards. We've seen this not too long ago with the BAFTAs, or at least like in terms of like their announcement of nominations. And we've seen this, of course, with the Critics' Choice Awards. But the Oscars is telling a little bit of a different story here. Because when you do go down the musical categories, the nominations for Best Original Score are All Quiet on the Western Front, Babylon, The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and The Fabelmans. Whereas Best Original Song, we got Applause, Hold My Hand, Lift Me Up, Natu, and This Is a Life. Or let me rephrase that actually. Applause for Tell It Like a Woman, Hold My Hand from Top Gun Maverick, Lift Me Up from Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Natu from RRR, and This Is a Life from Everything Everywhere All at Once. Notice how Pinocchio was not nominated in either of those. And the big point that I'm trying to make with it is that usually when you see an animated film be nominated for multiple awards, like actually gather more nominations than just in Best Animated Feature, then that is a strong indicator that it is most likely that film to go and win Best Animated Feature. That's usually the case that we have seen throughout the years. And if Pinocchio were to be nominated for Best Score and Best Song, that would have given me a lot more confidence to say that, yeah, it's definitely for sure Pinocchio that's gonna win Best Animated Feature. But this is not the case, however. That's not what we are actually seeing. And so far, Pinocchio now only has 1 Oscar nomination, along with every other animated film this year. In fact, this is honestly one of those dry years at the Oscars where the only place that you will find animated features be nominated is just in the Best Animated Feature category. Which is why, if I would have to go and predict who would win Best Animated Feature this year, I would say that it would be either Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio or Turning Red. I think it's going to be a toss-up between those two, and whoever's going to win, we will see. Like, I mean, on one hand, you got Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Like, regardless of what I said, it is still a very strong and prominent contender where so far it's been winning a significant amount of Best Animated Feature categories across many different award shows and award ceremonies and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's been like Pinocchio has already been collecting a lot of wins, which makes it a top runner for also winning Best Animated Feature. But then again, you also have Turning Red. And we all know how the Oscars can have a bit of a Disney bias, where many people would go towards one direction. The Oscars would usually lead to another. We've seen this last year where we've seen plenty of other award shows. They would go and give the Best Animated Feature win to The Mitchells vs. the Machines, where the Oscars is one of the few that would go and give it to Encanto. And in this case over here, it would honestly not surprise me if the Oscars would go and decide to take a complete left turn and they decide to go and give it to Turning Red, especially with the history of the Oscars, not just with their Disney bias, but especially with how the voters would normally be, because we've already seen a whole lot of records and documents that do show that whenever Academy members would go and vote for who would win Best Animated Feature, they just normally don't care. They would either pass or they would let their kid choose for them, which the kids would usually go with the Disney choices. I mean, if Illumination would be there, then they would definitely go with that one also. Honestly, with that said, I would just, like, this might be a crazy take, but if Sing 2 were to be nominated for Best Animated Feature last year, I think that would have actually gotten Best Animated Feature at the Oscars, even over both Mitchell's and Encanto, because, well, the Academy members would let their kids vote, and you know how kids are crazy for those Illumination films. And if not Illumination, then they would go with Disney. And that's why I would say it's either Pinocchio or Turning Red. I know there are other fan favorites that are in competition. Like, some people might be asking, well, what about Puss in Boots? And maybe some people might think, what about Marcel? Well, to be honest, folks, keep in mind, I'm not predicting what I think is going to win. I'm predicting what I think the Academy is going to pick. Which, come to think of it right now, I think it pretty much means the same thing as what I think is going to win. But this is not based on my personal opinion. This is on what I believe the Academy is going to go with. Like, for me personally, I'm just going to say right now, I want to see Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio win. I think that movie absolutely deserves it. Not only is it one of the best animated, not only the best animated film of last year, but one of the best animated films of the decade so far. Like, honestly, like, it totally, like, that movie absolutely deserves it right there. That's what I think. That's what I want to see win. But what I think would win is completely different. That's why I do believe it is a massive toss-up between Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio and Turning Red. Now, which one is going to be the winner? Honestly, we will have to go and wait and see. But I do know for now that I do have a little bit of homework, not just to go and see Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, but hopefully I'll be able to have access to go and see the animated shorts category, because that's been a commitment that I've been trying to do, to see all the Oscar nominated animated content, including the animated shorts, because you never know which ones are actually very fascinating to watch and which ones will be like massively impactful. But yeah, so far we got a pretty competitive year. We will see how things will go. Maybe it will turn in Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio's favor. Maybe there might be a massive shock. Maybe it'll be Turning Red. Or we could be all wrong, and the biggest surprise of the year for the Oscars will be that Marcel suddenly slips in and grabs the Oscar. Who the fridge knows? But what we do know right now is just it seems like it's going to be a very tight year. And yeah, we got a handful of movies that are in competition, but ultimately we will see how things will go. And with that said and done, I would like to say congratulations to all the films that have gotten nominated, especially to the team that worked on Pinocchio, Marcel, Puss in Boots, The Sea Beast, and Turning Red. Congratulations to them all for their nomination. And we will see how the Oscars are going to go, which I do believe is on May 12th, I think. I could be wrong. Yeah, yes, exactly. It's going to be on May 12th. So we will see how the show will go at that time. And with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall. And now it's time I want to ask you, how do you feel about the nominations for Best Animated Picture at the Oscars? Are there some surprises for you? Are there some snubs that you feel like occurred? And don't hesitate if you want to go and discuss about some of the other categories as well. Let me know what you all think on that. All right, let's see what we got. Yeah, I am currently rooting for either Pinocchio or Turning Red for animation. Also, I'm definitely going to try to binge watch those animated shorts, especially My Year of Dicks, because of its title. It's from one of the writers of Ralph Breaks the Internet, and I first heard about this short from Phil Lord and Chris Miller. For Best Picture, I really want to root for The Fabelmans or Everything Everywhere All at Once. So congratulations to all the nominees and colleagues this year, and good luck to them. All right, that's nice. This year's Oscar nominations was pretty good this year. Best Animated Short gave me a chuckle with The Year of Dicks and An Ostrich Told Me the World is Fake and I Think I Believe It, saying it out loud by the host. Saying it out loud by the host, hell will be raised if Pinocchio or Puss doesn't win. And seeing the chaos of Best Actress where Andrea Riseborough might get her nomination snatched due to sketchy promotion. I'm hoping this year show will be much worse than last year, where the Academy has to give us the Muppets in 2024. Oh yeah, like, keep in mind, folks, I'm definitely going to be watching the Oscars, not because, like, I want to see who wins. I want to see more chaos to unfurl. I want to see more unexpected, crazy moments, the kind that you have, the kind that people would go and say you had to be there. You know, I want to see another Will Smith style slap calamity occur, or Will Smith slap style calamity to go and occur. I want to see more of that to go and happen, because those are the moments that makes the Oscars worthwhile to actually watch. Let's see what we have here. I really hope that Everything Everywhere All at Once wins Best Picture, and the same for Netflix's Pinocchio, since those films were just amazing. The ones I don't agree that are nominated are The Sea Beast and Top Gun Maverick, since those films are just so basic and that it didn't make them interesting enough. Hoping Pinocchio does win Best Animated Movie, just so Del Toro can say animation is an art form and not a genre. Oh yeah, like, I can guarantee you that if Pinocchio wins, Guillermo del Toro is definitely going to go and do that. But it would not surprise me if the Academy will choose not to have Pinocchio win just so they could avoid that moment. You know how the Academy can also have a prejudice against animation. I know it sounds conspiracy theory like, but it would not surprise me that they are going to dodge Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio to go and give that a win, just so nobody would go on stage and say that animation is a medium, not a genre. I'm just saying. I just want to go and lay it out there. All right, let's see. I'm happy about the nominations for the animation category, but I'm disappointed that Pinocchio wasn't nominated for Best Score and Song, but happy overall. I also like some nominations but the lack of female director nominations, Woman King Shutout, and Viola Davis and especially Danielle Deadwyler not being nominated had me and everyone angry to the point that the Oscars is now investigating the surprise Roseboro nomination to see if her team broke the rules or not. There is that. Honestly, I have not heard of that controversy. Like, I know there was a shock that the Woman King was completely left out of the Academy. Even I was surprised that it didn't get a single nomination. But just looking into the best the best actress category, for Leslie, I don't know. We'll see how things will go, but who the fridge knows what's going to happen with that one. Like, I guess, like, we'll see the updates as they will go and unfurl. Maybe I'll go and talk about it in a future episode if we do have updates on it. But yeah, at least from what you guys are telling me in the chat wall, things sound like it's already going crazy with the Best Actress category. Let's see. With the exception of The Sea Beast, the nominees for Best Animated Feature are very solid choices. As for which of these would win the awards, Del Toro's Pinocchio and Turning Red are probably the most likely. But as you said, the latter is mainly because the Oscars does have a Disney bias. Personally, though, I would pick Puss in Boots, if only because I want to see a diverse amount of winners like we did back in 2019 with Klaus, Missing Link, and Toy Story 4. Although, I just want to go and say, I don't think this year we do have that much of a diverse category. Or, you know what, maybe we do have a little bit, because I did see like Wendell and Wild get a few wins. Marcel also getting a few wins, but the majority of it so far is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. So I don't know if I would say it's as diverse as 2019, where like we got a combo of like Klaus, Missing Link, and Toy Story 4. All right, so I'll read a few more I'll read a couple more comments, and then we're gonna move on to the next story after the break. Let's see. Even if I'd swap out the Sea Beast for Wendell and Wild, I'd say this year presents a pretty good lineup. My vote for Best Animated Feature is a toss-up between Pinocchio or Marcel, since both were absolutely phenomenal movies. As for the other nominations, Brian Tyree Henry getting nominated was cool. Ana de Armas' nomination was weird, since Blonde was really bad. And I don't know what An Ostrich Told Me the World is Fake and I Think I Believe It is about, but the title is freaking awesome. Okay, you know, I know like there's a lot of like controversy in regards to Blonde itself, and yeah, it's a pretty crappy movie, but Ana de Armas' performance, like, she did very well. At the very least, like, it's not her fault that like the movie came out bad. She was only working with what she had, and what she had, like, as garbage as it is, she still did pretty well with her performance. So, I mean, I wouldn't, you know, honestly, I wouldn't take that nomination away from her. All right, so one more comment here. I gotta say that these nominations are satisfying. Some of the films I'm rooting for are Avatar: The Way of Water for visual effects, and for Best Animated Film, I'm rooting for Pinocchio. However, I am honestly a bit nervous about Best Animated Feature, because you know no matter who wins, it will be toxic. If Pinocchio wins, people will put Turning Red down, and if Turning Red wins, people will attack Disney and say the Oscars have a bias, no in between. Oh yeah, I mean, like, I've already talked about, very recently, I talked about, like, the toxicity of the tribalism that's within the cartoon community, and that's one thing I'm not excited to go and see. All right, so with that said, my time will soon be up and the break will suddenly appear, so better go and wrap this up. But for our next story, just gonna give you all a warning, we're getting back into a pretty shocking and controversial subject, but I think it's safe to say that when it comes to this individual, he's done. And we are back. Now, the next story is going to be an update to a previous report that I have talked about in regards to Justin Roiland, known as the co-creator of Rick and Morty. Now, unfortunately, the news came out that Justin Roiland was charged with domestic abuse, and while some may say that a lot of it is allegations, the reports that did come out and what happened to Justin Roiland, well, apparently there's been some evidence that actually do lean that, yeah, apparently the dude is actually an abuser. Especially with the fact that, regardless of the allegations or the claims and stuff like that, it doesn't change the fact that he was arrested and had to be released with a $50,000 bond, that he had a restraining order put against him, and that he had all his guns taken away from him because of that restraining order. So already things are looking terribly bad for Justin Roiland. But very recently though, or just last week, things just went from bad to worse, and I think there's no better way of putting it. And now we have officially gotten a response from studios. The people who have collaborated with Justin Roiland in terms of his big name projects. Now, when the charges were made, we didn't hear anything from either Hulu, 20th Century, or from Adult Swim in regards to what they would do moving forward. But with the charges made and how his PR just went down the drain, ultimately they decided to just let him go. And the first big one to do so, and pretty much the biggest, is actually Adult Swim. in which they have confirmed that they have completely cut ties with Justin Roiland altogether. Now, the only thing that Justin Roiland will be able to keep is his credit as a co-creator, since you cannot do anything to go and actually change that. But right now, Justin Roiland can no longer work at Adult Swim, and in terms of his performance as Rick and Morty, he's going to quickly be recast. Like now, Adult Swim is going to be in the process to go and find someone else to go and voice Rick and Morty, especially with the fact that right now they have already renewed Rick and Morty for several seasons, and right now the show is going to go all the way up to season 10. And as for the show running position, right now it's just going to be Dan Harmon. Considering he's the other co-creator, now he will be the only showrunner of the series. So that's the big plan of what's going to be going on with Adult Swim. As for the other places that Justin Roiland works at, apparently he's out of there as well. We got a report in regards to Hulu and 20th Animation, in which they have confirmed as well that he's no longer going to be working on Solar Opposites or in Koala Man. They even stated that we have ended our association with Justin Roiland, according to my source here on Entertainment Weekly, and that they are going to go and do the same thing. Whatever show running position, that's going to be taken away from Justin Roiland, and whatever voices that he has done for the for those projects, he's going to go and be recasted. So it's the same story with Solar Opposites and with Koala Man as well, considering that he was credited as an executive producer on that. And then there is the company that Justin himself has actually founded, Squanch Games, in which they've actually found some significant popularity in recent years, especially because of the game High on Life. Now, regardless of whatever opinion that you may have on High on Life, it is still pretty popular, with many people talking about it nonetheless. And apparently, Justin Roiland, not long after the charges, he apparently resigned from his entire position from Squanch Games. He agreed to just completely separate himself from the company so that the company itself can continue to survive, so that they can keep on making games and that they could keep on making High on Life, or like improving upon High on Life. They, you know what, they actually did put out a statement themselves, so I'm just going to go and directly read it from the Twitter account themselves to let them say it. So it actually stated here, on January 16th, 2023, Squanch Games received Justin Roiland's resignation. The passionate team at Squanch will keep developing games we know our fans will love, while continuing to support and improve High on Life. So that was the only statement that we have gotten from Squanch Games about it, but yeah, that's pretty much the big thing. Justin Roiland is officially out of Rick and Morty. He is out of Adult Swim. He is out of Solar Opposites and Koala Man. He is out of Hulu. He is out of 20th Century. And he is out of Squanch Games. So I think, honestly, it's safe to say, like I said before, Justin Roiland is done. His career is over. It's dead. Like, at this point, if Justin Roiland would move on from his charges, from the crimes that he has done, then he would have to go and consider a career change, because I think it's safe to say that right now he's pretty much blacklisted. And I could tell you, the one thing that is the final nail in Justin Roiland's career's coffin, is the fact that he was let go from Adult Swim and that he was fired from Rick and Morty. Now, I know at this point some people may say that, well, technically, Justin Roiland's fate was already sealed when he had those charges. Like, at that point, like, that was when his career was over. I would argue not necessarily. I mean, I would agree with you. I do agree with you that technically it should be over when the charges were made. But then again, knowing how Hollywood can be, as long as they still feel like they want to go and work with you, technically your career would not necessarily be dead, regardless of the crimes that you have committed and regardless of what kind of interactions that you've had with the police because of what you have done. Because again, as long as Hollywood is still cool to work with you, then your career is not necessarily dead. Yes, you'll have a massive PR nightmare, but that doesn't mean that your career would be over. And I say that because, well, case in point, take a look at Ezra Miller. Like, you literally have a legitimate felon and a convict, and apparently that's not going to stop Warner Brothers Discovery to go and work with him more so that he could keep making that Flash movie. But in the case of Justin Roiland, on the other hand, the fact that he was charged and then he was let go of Rick and Morty, I think that move right there was the deal breaker. That's what sealed the deal. That's what killed his career at that moment. Because it's not just being let go of Rick and Morty. It's not just being let go of his own show. It's being let go of one of the most popular adult animated series in recent years. It's the show that made Justin Roiland an adult animation icon. The thing that actually made Justin, like, some people could say on par with other creators like Seth MacFarlane and Trey Parker and Matt Stone, like at that level, especially with the amount of popularity that Rick and Morty has received over the years, especially like during its heyday. Like, he really was that big. And not to mention that he also is or was Rick and Morty. Like, he wasn't just the showrunner, he wasn't just the co-creator, he was also the voice of Rick and Morty. And say what you will about his position nowadays. Like, yeah, maybe the only thing that Justin Roiland would do on Rick and Morty, like in these past few seasons, is just be the voice and nothing more. Have nothing to do with the writing, have nothing to do with the show running. Like, he's just there to go and collect his checks, to keep on providing the voice of Rick and Morty, and that's it and that's all. But still, the fact that, like, the big, the person whom he plays one of the biggest roles, like, not just for acting, but for creating Rick and Morty, the fact that he was dropped from that Adult Swim had to cut ties from him because of his very troublesome history, that is a deal breaker. That's pretty much a death sentence right there, because Justin was making a very good living with just Rick and Morty alone. And the fact that he was ultimately dropped from it, like, that's going to be something that will be a prominent moment in your history that people will remember you for. Like, yeah, they're going to remember that he is the co-creator and the voice of Rick and Morty, but they will also know that he was let go from that position because of the domestic abuse charges. And that alone is more damaging than even the charges themselves, or even some of the other things that he got fired. Like, honestly, like, the rest, like getting let go of Hulu and like resigning from Squanch Games, like, that's nothing more but salt to the open wound. That's not the thing that actually made the wound itself. Like, so, like, honestly, that's just, that's just nothing more but additional damage. And I could still see that, like, with Rick and Morty and Solar Opposites, yeah, those shows are still going to continue no matter what, regardless of what's happening with Justin Roiland. But honestly, in this case here, like, I know that for Justin, it's over. Like, Justin has now gone in the way of, like, the other disgraced animation icons. Like, Justin Roiland has now become the next Chris Savino, the next Vic Mignogna, and the next John Kay. Oh, and speaking of John Kay, by the way, I know that on top of this, there have been some additional allegations that have actually come out in regards of Justin Roiland. Now, in this case, though, I do need to be careful because I know that there are some that have provided some evidence, while on the other hand, there are others that are apparently completely made up. So I know that, like, maybe not 100% of all the allegations are true in regards to Justin Roiland, but there have also been some allegations that apparently Justin has been flirting with a lot of underage girls, like a lot of jailbait girls, that he would keep texting them, he would keep flirting with them, that he would go and exchange, he would go and like exchange conversations and even make promises, and even making those John K promises of like, hey, like, talking with 16-year-old girls like, oh yeah, I could totally be your mentor. Like, just stick with me and I'll have you like, I'll give you easy access into the animation industry and stuff like that. That kind of creepy tactic that, again, John K has used in order to go and date 15 and 16-year-old girls. So there are those that have been floating around. Again, maybe not all of the allegations are necessarily true, because there have been some false ones that did come out, but there are also some others that really do paint Justin on a very negative picture. And from all that, honestly, I feel like at this point, if there could ever be a second chance for Justin Roiland, then at this point, it's going to require a legitimate miracle. Like, that would be the only thing that would go and save him. Now, I am aware that I believe in April, he's going to go in court in terms of the domestic abuse charges. And if he can manage to find a way to prove himself completely innocent, that all the allegations turn out to be false, that he has done nothing wrong, and that everything that people have said about him are lies and stuff like that, then that would be the only way that could save his career. But again, that would require a miracle for that to go and happen. Otherwise, he's pretty much over. Again, he's now pretty much become the next Vic Mignogna, the next John K, the next Chris Savino, where he's just one of those disgraced animators that he was once at the top, but then he got called out to be a very creepy predator and had to be put back down. So yeah, honestly, throughout all of this, I think honestly at this point, Adult Swim, Hulu, and others, like, they've done the right move. Like, so far they have seen that with Justin Roiland, things are just getting from bad to worse, and that the charges are going to like loom over him for like as long as the court will be, which will probably be throughout 2023. So they don't want to deal with it anymore, so they have no choice but to let go of him, and I honestly do not blame him. Now, since we do have a confirmation that he's no longer going to be working in Solar Opposites and Rick and Morty, at this point, the question remains, how are these shows going to go? Will they be able to survive without Justin Roiland? And honestly, I would say yes. Because like I said before, like, in the current like, people who still watch Rick and Morty right now, I think they're still going to watch Rick and Morty regardless of who is going to be the voice of the main characters, considering that Justin Roiland's role in these recent seasons have only been the voices and nothing else. It's not going to affect the show running. It's not going to affect the writing. It's not going to affect the quality of the series, regardless of what you may say of how the current state of Rick and Morty may be. But yeah, like, honestly, it's going to be minimal changes on Rick and Morty itself. I'm not I think I could say the same thing with Solar Opposites. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't done my research on that yet. I do apologize. I could be wrong on it, but I think the same can be said with that one too. I think like with those shows, they're going to be fine. Not much change is going to be. I would be shocked if there's going to be like a massive boycott from Rick and Morty fans that, oh, we don't want to watch the show. I don't think it's going to be like another Vic Mignogna case where, like, we're going to see this evolve into some crazy culture war. Although I will say, like, I have seen some people try to do so, where we've seen a lot of right-wing figures try to defend the domestic abuse of Justin Roiland, like Tim Pool and Elon Musk showing their support for Justin Roiland by saying that Adult Swim did a bad move for firing him and stuff like that. But no, honestly, when it comes to Justin Roiland, I think like he is too hopeless to the point where he's not like there's not going to be a whole culture war based on Justin. I think honestly, like the people are going to go and abandon all hope when it comes to the guy himself. And those who are going to watch Rick and Morty, they will go and still watch Rick and Morty nonetheless. I think like the current state of those shows, there's not going to be much change that will occur. I mean, maybe we will have to wait and see with how things will go on the next season of those series. But again, we'll just wait and see. But yeah, overall, though, I just got to say, yeah, like, it's done. I think Justin Roiland, his career is over. He's not coming back from the animation industry. He's blacklisted. And unless a miracle can happen, yeah, he's just going to be known as like a criminal and a creep. All right. Now, with that said and done, though, I would like to go into the chat wall. And I would like to ask you all, how do you feel about the current situation with Justin Roiland? Do you agree that his career is over? What do you think about the allegations and about some of the other reports about Justin Roiland? Let me know what you think about all this. Okay, let's see. Adult Swim, 20th Century Animation, and Squanch Games did the right thing here. This is only Justin Roiland's problem, and that's it. He's done. I don't normally say this to other people on this, but I'm glad he's going to struggle, and I'm glad for it. I'm just glad that these shows will continue to air without Justin and let the rest of the crew continue what they love, and I do hope we get a decent sound-alike voice actor. Would you consider doing an audition? Oh, if they offer it to me, I would be so down to audition, no problem. But I've already talked about I've already talked about last time how, considering that the Rick and Morty voice has been so frequently impersonated, I think honestly, I don't think Adult Swim is going to have any trouble, or even Hulu is going to have any trouble finding a Justin Roiland impersonator to do that, to do either the Rick or to do the Morty voice. I think that's going to be fine. Yep, absolutely, Morty. I think, honestly, there's no trouble. Like, people impersonate Rick and Morty all the time. It's going to be, they're going to pick one of them and just say, hey, you want to work for Adult Swim? There you go. It's going to be like that. Oh, let's see here. Adult Swim really said, just roiled up to one of my biggest embarrassments career's funeral just to make sure the fool's career is dead. My biggest question is, who's going to take over the voice of Rick and Morty? While I feel bad for Adult Swim having to receive hundreds of voice messages of really bad Morty impressions, but I think the best contender so far is the dude on TikTok called Harry Hair. Seriously, look it up. His voice is pretty sick. You know what? I'll take your word for it. We're going to look at that right now. So I just want to go and see TikTok Harry Hair. So I just want to see, actually, hold on. Rick and Morty. I just want to see if like specifically we can go and actually hear this. Just want to know how his voice is. Let's hear it right now. On.
Wham! This is my audition to be the new voice of Rick and Morty. Wubba-lubba-dub-dub! Boom! Big reveal. I turned myself into a pickle. I am Pickle Rick. Weddings are basically funerals with cake.
You son of a fish! I freaking believed you, man. I freaking believed you. And I was, like when he was doing his Texas thing, I was thinking like, what the fridge is this? What kind of malarkey did you send me here? Damn you, JF! I got freaking trolled, man. That's what happened here. I got freaking trolled. Oh my god. Oh, what the fridge? What the fridge? Okay, anyways, let's see now. At this point, Justin Roiland shouldn't be earning any benefits and royalties, and I'm glad that various companies have cut him off. And don't be surprised if you see the fandom menace keep defending him. And I saw some I Stand With Vic people defend him. Well, of course. because, well, they want they want to be domestic abusers like Justin Roiland. But anyways, and a family member of mine is a Rick and Morty fan, and I wonder what he feels. But we could still separate art from the artist. What Roiland did was in the words of Lemon Grab. Yeah, and also I just want to go and state right now, I know I've said this before, but if you are a Rick and Morty fan, that does not, honestly, the whole situation does not concern you. I am not going to judge any Solar Opposite fans or Rick and Morty fans based on what Justin Roiland has done, and I could separate the art from the artist as well. And if you still want to watch Rick and Morty, or you still want to watch Solar Opposites and stuff like that, or if you still want to play High on Life, that's perfectly fine. You could still go and do so, and I'm not going to judge you. I'm like, that should not go and reflect upon your opinions in relation to Justin Roiland. Those are two completely separate things. So I just want to go and put that up. Anyways, thank God, with all that abuse and other possible crimes that he has committed, Justin Roiland most certainly should not be attached to any of the projects he has worked on, and him being cut out wouldn't really affect them at all. What I worry about now is that we know that the internet is home for a couple of crazy fans, and there is a very good chance that they might go and attack the victims, which in this case, we must be ready to defend the innocent and retaliate back. Yeah, in that regard, now you understand why that the woman who was abused by Justin Roiland kept herself anonymous. Because even she knows that if she would reveal who she is, then you got those anti-woke people who want to defend domestic abuse and want to be domestic abusers themselves, that they want to go and attack and send death threats to the girl who once dated Justin Roiland. It's kind of like with Vic Mignogna fans. Vic Mignogna fans want to be creeps. They want to be child groomers themselves. So what do? They go and attack the victims. They go and attack people who call them out and who call Vic Mignogna out for who he truly is. Let's see, what other comments do we have? It's a good thing I don't watch Rick and Morty and thus have no attachment to one of the creators. Honestly, what Roiland isn't important. His victims are. I'll be honest, I'm surprised that the police took his guns thanks to the order of protection. Like, I wish that could happen in all cases of stalking and abuse. So yeah, Justin Roiland, screw you. To the culture war, Amber Heard is one false accusation. False accusations are rare, like 2 to 10%. Yeah, there is that. Anyways, I think I'm going to read one more comment before we move on to the next break and the next story. It's about time that he was fired. Keep in mind that I didn't watch any of his shows, but considering that he was arrested and might be getting closer to going to prison, he had to let go from all of his shoes he worked on, particularly with Rick and Morty, that he made and voiced those characters. I don't think he'll put off to be innocent, but by the time the trial, I don't think he'll pull off to be innocent by the time of the trial, but it's safe to say that his career is dead. Exactly. Now, with that said, we are going to go onto a break, and when we do come back, we're going to go and lighten things up, and we're going to talk about which movie is going to be going to the stage. And we are back. Now, the next story that I have for you today is going to be in regards to Disney. And let me tell you, Disney had quite a very eventful weekend. Oh my God, like, have you seen the stuff that's been going on, specifically at Disneyland, considering that they have kicked off the 100-year anniversary of the company? And what they've started with is something that is extremely strong. Like, the stuff that they have premiered at Disneyland, it kind of makes you a little bit jealous that maybe you are not at Disneyland right now. Like, a great example is the opening of the California version of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which features one of the best queues I've ever seen in a Disney ride, at least in recent years. Like, it is absolutely phenomenal what they have done, like actually created this Mickey Mouse museum, but not in the way you think, like a legitimate Mickey Mouse museum where you see the props and the costumes that he has used in many of his most famous works. So that, honestly, you got to go and see that on YouTube. It's like honestly incredible and honestly awe-inspiring what the Imagineers have done with that. Like, so it's very much cool what they've created with it. And then there is also the nighttime spectaculars at Disneyland, including a World of Color, or at least the World of Color 1. That's in Disney California Adventure. And then there is Wondrous Journeys, which is the nighttime fireworks show at Disneyland, where they would go and project every single Walt Disney Animation Studios movie, like giving an homage to every single one of them, from Snow White all the way up to Strange World. And I'm just gonna say, no, I haven't seen any videos of it yet. I'm trying to avoid it because I know if I do watch it, I'll end up crying. Like, no joke. I'll see how it is, and it's gonna be one of those tears of like, it's so beautiful. I'm not gonna lie. I actually remember when I went to Disneyland and I actually saw the fireworks show, which was a big tribute to the Pixar films, and that actually had me teared up. Like, it really was that good. But we're not going to be talking about any of that. What we're talking about is what happened in the East Coast, where at Walt Disney World in Epcot, they were celebrating the Festival of the Arts. And they've actually made a massive announcement that not many people were expecting, which is a Coco musical. Yes, this was actually during their Disney on Broadway concert series, in which there are many special guest stars, many celebrities that appeared on Disney Broadway productions. But in this case over here, what happened specifically on January 24th, two people, in which is Mandy Gonzalez and L. Steven Taylor, have actually made the announcement that Disney on Broadway is currently in production on a stage adaptation of Disney and Pixar's 2017 movie Coco. In fact, there's actually a video that my source here on Laughing Place has actually provided, so let's go and quickly check this one out.
Audiences of all ages, young and old.
This tale of family, fun, and adventure inspires a young musician named Miguel to go on an extraordinary adventure to the magical land of his ancestors. With a score by Michael Giacchino and additional songs from the composer-lyricist team from Frozen, Coco is now in development at Disney on Broadway to become a live stage show. Now, here is Mandy Gonzalez to sing Robert Lopez and Kristen Anderson Lopez's Remember Me.
All right, we're not going to go and listen to that. Because speaking of crying, I know that might make some people cry with this one. But yes, that apparently is the big thing, is that Disney right now is going to be making a stage adaptation of Coco. Now, one thing that I do want to go and bring up is that technically, this is not the first time that we have actually seen a Pixar movie be adapted to the stage. It's just that the previous ones were restricted to just the Disney parks or around Disney's territory. And what I mean by that is that I don't necessarily mean like a stage show with meet and greet characters or you see Mickey and Minnie running around and stuff like that. No, that's not what I mean. I mean like actual stage productions where Disney actually treated it like a full-on Broadway production and even gave those productions new musical numbers, new songs, and all that kind of stuff. And one example I can think of is a Toy Story musical. They actually technically made a stage adaptation of Toy Story that they once held at Disney California Adventure, and then they also held it at the Disney Cruise. I remember when I was at the Disney Cruise over a decade ago, I actually did see that Toy Story musical, and I'm not gonna lie, it's actually pretty solid. Like, it's honestly the kind that they should legit consider to just take it and bring it elsewhere, you know, like bring it to other places to show people that, yeah, you can make a Toy Story musical. It's actually, you know, it's actually pretty awesome. And then there is another one, which is Finding Nemo the musical. Although this one can only be found at Disney Animal Kingdom. And in that one, they treated it a little bit like The Lion King, where it heavily uses a lot of puppets in order to represent all the fish and stuff like that. But with Nemo, it also includes music coming from Robert and Kristen Anderson Lopez. So in that regard, that's how they treated it as like a full-on musical. Although I will state that they didn't adapt the entire movie. I think like that Nemo one was very much a bridge. I think it's like around half the length of the actual movie itself, but still, those were the closest that Disney has done before in terms of taking their Pixar films and turning that into a stage musical. And with that said, I think honestly, if they would go and continue that, or to really expand that, if there is one movie that they would do to turn Pixar into a musical, it would undeniably have to be Coco. I think it's the one that has the perfect recipe to go and be a stage musical, especially with the fact that even though Coco itself is technically not a musical itself, it is a movie about music, and there's already a whole bunch of songs in there already. Not just Remember Me, but there's also El Pollo Loco, and some of the other songs that were sung by Ernesto de la Cruz. So already you got the musical aspect down, and I can imagine how it can be easy to go and expand upon it. Like what other musical moments that you may have, you know, give Miguel a musical number, give the family a whole musical number when you enter upon the land of the dead, or maybe you can go and give Hector his own musical number. You know, there's a lot of major possibilities that you could go and give a unique musical number to all these different characters, or even give a musical number to Ernesto de la Cruz when there's that massive plot twist that he was the villain. There's a lot of those possibilities. But then there is also the additional challenge of how are you gonna go and adapt the visuals onto the show. And in that regard, honestly, I realized there is actually something very genius about taking Coco and you turn it into a stage musical. Because in a way, you can make Coco the Hispanic version of The Lion King. Now, what I mean by that is that when you look at the Lion King Broadway version, like when you watch the stage adaptation of The Lion King, they actually take a lot of African traditions and they would go adapt that onto the stage. And even like a lot of their use of puppetry, a lot of the aesthetics, even the costumes are all based on African traditions. And I'm thinking you could probably do the same thing with Coco, where you can adopt a lot of Mexican traditions in order to go and develop your stage adaptation. Take a lot of the traditions that were established when like the people in Mexico would go and like when they would put on a show, or when they would go and produce their when they would go and produce their stage productions, adopt that onto Coco. And if you're going to be introducing elements of like like skeletons, or if you're going to bring in puppetry and stuff like that, try to do it in the Mexican tradition. Like really emphasize the Mexico element the same way that The Lion King emphasized the Africa element. So in that regard, I could see it how it's like pure genius. But how are they going to go and represent how are they going to represent the dead characters? That we will have to wait and see. Admittedly, I'm not 100%, I'm not fully familiar with like Mexican culture and how they would go and fully celebrate the Day of the Dead. Like the most that I do know from Day of the Dead, admittedly, is just from Coco and from the Book of Life. But rather if they would do like painted characters that they would have like actors that would just paint themselves, like all skeleton like, or they would actually have performers play with puppets of like Hector or Ernesto de la Cruz or the rest of the Miguel family. Like there's a lot of possibilities, but honestly, like either way it would not go wrong as long as you stay like the thing is with a Coco stage musical, I could see so much of it working so well. Like there's so many elements that are already in place that you know it will work, and a lot of possibilities where you can actually go and make it work. Like for example, like with Coco, you already got a very well established story. Like the story, they already nailed it in the movie, so they're perfectly fine to go and take that and bring it to the stage. Then you got the musical aspect. You could bring back Robert and Kristen Anderson Lopez the same way that you brought them back to adapt Frozen onto a stage musical, and you'll be fine. You'll be set right there too. And then there is the visual aspect, in which that will pretty much open up the possibilities of what you can do, but there's a lot of it that you cannot go wrong. As long as you stay true to the Mexican traditions, as long as you go and find a creative way to bring to life these skeleton characters, then at that point, you're done. You're pretty much set. I think, honestly, there's so much of it. I feel like it's highly likely that this Coco musical can actually succeed more so than it would not. There's little room for failure right over here. But, of course, that they have, like, that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy for them to go and bring this to life. I'm sure it's going to be a challenge in order to get everything done correctly in order to make it work. But what I'm trying to say is that if they can make this Coco adaptation work, it's gonna be a grand slam. It's gonna be fantastic, like major Tony Award winning, like gonna be right up there in the leagues of like Aladdin and the Lion King and the Frozen musical. Like it's gonna be like they're like if the Coco musical wins, it's gonna be a big win. Now keep in mind though that this is still very much in early stages. Like we only know about the fact that Disney on Broadway is making the musical. This is not 100% confirmed if Disney is gonna go and actually bring this to Broadway. Like we don't have a confirmation if it's gonna be that big just yet, considering that the recent Disney stage adaptations, they're off Broadway, such as The Hunchback of Notre Dame or Hercules. We don't fully know when is it going to be coming out. We don't know the cast. We don't know what they're going to do. Honestly, amongst all these things, we just don't know. Or even another one I just thought about, technically the Winnie the Pooh musical that recently came out a few months ago. There was that one as well. Technically, that was actually off Broadway, and I think it was only there for a limited time. I think it's still there. I could be wrong, but that's another example. So, like, it's still very much in early stages, but I can already see the strong potential of a Coco musical, and it kind of makes me very optimistic. I mean, maybe there is that chance that it might fail, it might not work, but for me, I feel like I could see how it could turn out awesome than not. So that's honestly my entire thoughts on that. And with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I want to ask you all, how do you feel about Coco becoming a stage adaptation? How do you feel about a full-on Coco stage musical? Are you on board with this? Are you excited with the idea? Are you doubtful about it? Let me know what you all think. All right, let's see now. What do we have here? So this sounds like fun. I think Coco could translate well as a Broadway musical. I mean, it is already kind of a musical. They even have cut songs they could reuse for the stage. Also, the costumes in the Land of the Dead, because look at Ernesto de la Cruz at Disneyland's Oogie Boogie's Halloween Bash. That costume is phenomenal. I think the biggest challenge on stage is finding a kid to play as Miguel. New York has no shortage of Latinos in the city, but most are Puerto Rican. Oh my God, that is so true. You bring up a very good point, actually. If Disney can legit do like what they did with Ernesto de la Cruz, that would be phenomenal. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about or what Pixar girl is talking about here. Oh my god. I see JF saying, I apologize for nothing. You absolute dick. No, but anyways, as I was saying, the thing is, with Ernesto de la Cruz, during the Halloween time at Disneyland, when they had the Oogie Boogie Holiday Bash, they had Ernesto de la Cruz appear, and the costume that they did for him, it really is as if you take the Ernesto de la Cruz in the movie and you bring him like to real life. That's what it honestly felt like, because it was kind of like a combination of Hollywood style makeup and like masking that they have done. It's like a lot more complex than your typical meet and greet character, but the work that they did on him, it's freaking beautiful. It really does look like Ernesto de la Cruz. So, and if they would go and do that with all the other actors, oh my god, it's gonna be a lot of work, I can tell you that. But if they could pull that off like that, that would be phenomenal. Like, already, that's a best makeup winner right there. Let's see what else we have here. Coco is probably my favorite Pixar movie, and I won't lie, it was tailor-made to be a Broadway musical. Everything about the movie feels like it would just pop off to the stage. So if I ever find myself on Broadway, I just need to check it out. I have way less to say about this than I expected, so to defend my last comment's little trick, I said the dude has a sick voice, not a good impression. So if the cowboy has a sweet southern drawl, it must acquit. Yeah, oh, sure, man, no, sure, man, no, you didn't do that on purpose. Sure, yeah, you can find whatever excuse, man. You still freaking trolled me, you son of a fish. You still trolled me. Okay, let's see what else we have here. This is an amazing idea. Of all the Pixar films, I think Coco has the most potential to be turned into a musical. From the visuals and the musical moments, this honestly seems like a recipe for success. So overall, I'm really excited for this. Also, if there would be another Pixar film to be turned into a musical, I would love to see Ratatouille to be turned into a musical. About that, did you forget about the meme? You guys remember the meme, you know? What was it? Fudge, even I forgot a little bit. Remy the Ratatouille, the rat of all my dreams, or something like that. Like, they actually kind of pulled that off during the pandemic. So honestly, like, oh boy, if Disney would go and be serious about turning Ratatouille into a musical, oh boy, hey boy, that's gonna be that's already gonna be crazy. Even the chat wall, I already see like people are going Nick Cage on and going, no, not the memes, ah! The Remy the Ratatouille. Oh boy. Anyways, as a Mexican and Pixar fan, I'm kind of excited to see Coco becoming a Broadway show. I believe this is the first Pixar film to be adapted into a Broadway show. This is a big deal for Pixar doing Broadway because I know for a fact that they will put a lot of effort on this, and I already imagine the Mexican artwork in this. Hopefully, it will be great. Side note, I'm going to see the Frozen Broadway show this Thursday. Been wanting to see this for a while now, and it's also a perfect way to start Disney's 100 years. Yeah, hey, good luck with that. I've heard a lot of great things about the Broadway show, and for those of you who don't know, I actually heard, like, from people that I know who saw it, apparently it's a darker version of the movie that we do know. Like, even, like, there's even one musical number from Elsa in which she legit contemplates from, I guess the best way to put it would be to unsubscribe from life. Like, I believe the musical, the number is called Monster. It's worth listening. Like, that's actually a really good and powerful song right there. Let's see what else we got. Let's see what else do we have here. Ha ha ha, por fin Coco está consiguiendo un musical. I hope I said it right. I don't know. It's either I sounded right or I sounded white. It's one of those. Seriously, this sounds like a beautiful idea because I can actually picture Coco as a stage musical. I really love watching Coco because it talks about family and never giving up your dreams as a musician. If they can actually perform this musical at Dia de los Muertos, and I have the looks of it, I think it would look pretty amazing than any other musical. All right, I think I'm gonna go and read one more comment before we jump into the finale. I'm excited about how this musical turns out, since a lot of musicals based on Disney movies these days are mostly well received, and they add some new songs to the musical, which are honestly pretty cool. So I can't wait to see what new songs they'll write the musical for. I would love it if they brought in Julie Taymor for the musical. P.S. What Disney animated movie would you like to see be adapted into a Broadway musical? Well, I mean, there's already so much that have already been done, but honestly, it's tough to say. I mean, like, yeah, maybe a lot of the recent ones, like either Moana or Encanto, would be great. But honestly, you know what would be a fun challenge? I want to see them, how would they go and tackle the classics? Like, make either a Broadway adaptation of Disney's Pinocchio or Sleeping Beauty, especially. That would be a very nice one to turn into a Broadway musical. All right, so I believe with that said and done, now we're going to go and have a break, and then we're going to jump onto the grand finale, in which we are going to go and look into a rumor. But I'm not necessarily going to look into the rumor itself. We are going to go and do a little bit of an exercise about how we can go and determine if a story is either true or if it's full of crap, or maybe in between. And now, it is time that we will cap this episode off with the grand finale. And for this grand finale, we are going to be looking upon a pretty crazy rumor. One in which I can imagine that if true, the entire internet is just gonna go nuts about. But when I first heard about this, I saw it through social media where people would go and make their reactionary comments. And this is the kind that, like, if they heard about this, they would not be happy about it. But with that said, before anything, let's actually look into what is the rumor itself. And what I'm talking about is in regards to a How to Train Your Dragon live action movie. Yes, apparently some reports have come out to state that right now, Universal is currently in the works on a live action feature film based on the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. Now, other than that piece of knowledge, there's not a whole lot that the reports actually do know about. In fact, they even stated themselves that they're not 100% sure if How to Train Your Dragon, or this version of How to Train Your Dragon, is either going to be a continuation for the movies or if it's going to be a remake of the 2010 picture. But what they do know, however, is that apparently one person who's already involved in this is actually the franchise's director, Dean DeBlois, in which it was reported that he is actually going to be working on the film as the writer and director. In fact, going into my source here on the direct, it actually states, where would it say? Ah, yes. Apparently it is right over here. According to insider Daniel Richmond, a live-action How to Train Your Dragon project is in the works at Universal. In a post on Richmond's Patreon, the insider wrote that franchise writer-director Dean DeBlois would head up the venture, with nothing more to say on the subject, in which he literally just states that Dean DeBlois is writing and directing a live-action version of How to Train Your Dragon for Universal. It is unknown at this time that this would be a continuation/expansion to the How to Train Your Dragon story already told, or perhaps a live-action retelling of the 2010 film that kicked off the franchise. Now, keep in mind this is not the only article that actually brought this up. Now, this was actually fairly recent that the Direct actually mentioned that there would be this How to Train Your Dragon movie. Because apparently, a few weeks ago, there was another article that actually mentioned this, and that is from the website Giant Freaking Robot, in which they stated apparently 3 weeks ago that there would be a How to Train Your Dragon live action movie. And this one actually does repeat the same things that the Direct has mentioned, that Universal is working on this film. They don't know if it's either a continuation or a remake of the first film, and that Dean DeBlois would be writing and directing it. So that's pretty much the big thing that's going on. Now, the reason why I call this a rumor is because, well, for several factors, actually. The thing is with all this, yeah, it sounds absolutely insane that they would legitimately go and create a live action remake of How to Train Your Dragon. But the thing is, though, is that that's not what I really want to talk about. What we are going to do here is going to be a little bit of an exercise. Now, you probably do know that I encourage you all to go and do your own research, for you to go and actually not be a reactionary, where instead of acting before you think, that you think before you act. So in this regard, we're going to go and do a little bit of an exercise to go and determine if there's any legitimacy in regards to this story. And this is something that you can go and practice onto any other article that you would see that you feel like is a little bit conspicuous. Now, with this one, it's actually pretty easy, because this is something that requires just 3 simple steps. 3 steps that requires you to go and think a little bit, to have like an inner questionnaire happening in your mind, and then you can go and conclude if either you would believe this story or you may not. So, let's go and begin this little exercise, shall we? All right, now, first things first is to go and determine what is the source. Okay, so like, you see this news. Apparently, a How to Train Your Dragon live action movie is going to be happening. Now, the first thing that you got to go and determine is, what is the source? Who is telling you this? Which in this case, I got the Direct and Giant Freaking Robot. Now, I know there have been a few other websites that would go and talk about it, like MovieWeb or Comic Book Resources, but generally, those are the main ones that would go and discuss. Now, in this case over here, you got to go and determine the way that you determine the source is, have you heard about this source before? Have you heard about these people in the past? And if so, how legitimate are they? Because you probably have noticed in AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, what I would go is that I would try to make sure that my sources are fully reliable. That's why you've probably seen me use some of the same sources again and again. Like the most trustworthy website for movie news sources, or for the most trusted sources for movie news, what I would use is Variety, Deadline, and The Hollywood Reporter. And there are a few others I would use as well, including The Wrap. I would use Animation Magazine as well. And sometimes I would use IGN. And IGN, I would use it like not just for movies, but also for games and stuff like that. But then at the same time, while I do know that there are some very reliable sources, I also know that there are some unreliable sources as well. Those that either spread misinformation, like flat out lies just to get some clickbait going on, or they would go and twist the narrative so much in order to go and push a political agenda. That's why I do not trust any other source. I don't trust sources such as Cartoon Brew or Bounding Into Comics or any other anti-woke personality out there. I just flat out ignore them. I do not trust them as a news source whatsoever. But with that said, what if you come across something like this? The Direct and Giant Freaking Robot. Now, at this point, I would like to go and, and some people are also bringing up some others. Kotaku is another good one as well. But also, I want to go and ask the chat wall right now, have you ever heard before of the Direct or Giant Freaking Robot? Well, be honest, people. Like, I want to know if you have heard about those in the past. So I just don't want to wait until I see in the chat wall people say. Let's see. Nope. Okay, so yeah, I'm not seeing a yes just yet, but people are now just saying no. Oh, okay. One person says yes, but so far, the general consensus, it's almost unanimous that people have not heard about the source. Okay, that's interesting. And I'll say in my from my experience, I've honestly never really heard of the Direct, and I've only heard about Giant Freaking Robot a few times, but that's it. Like, maybe once I've heard that they have confirmed a story, but other than that, though, I've never really heard about Giant Freaking Robot as a legitimate news source. So at that point, if you've come face to face with a source that you have never heard from before, then at that point, you just have to leave a giant question mark. You have to leave it as inconclusive. You cannot immediately say that they're flat out lying, but you have to go and seriously doubt what they say. You cannot confirm it either. So that's why you have to put in some massive doubt onto the source if you have never heard of it before. Open up the possibility that maybe what they're saying is true, but don't take it as a fact just yet. Just have some doubt, and like for now, like place it as like it's fake, place it as it's fake, but don't say anything just yet. That's the best way to put it. So that's step number one. Now, step number two will be the source of the source. Where did they get their information? Because trusted news sources can have a massive reputation where like they already got people who are inside the studios, or like they would go and directly contact the studios directly to get their comments and stuff like that. So like the trustworthy news sources don't have to go and depend on other news sources to get their information. They already got their reputation. They already got their stuff settled. But when it comes to websites like these, they would have to go and actually grab some, they would have to go and clarify where did they get their sources in order to legitimize what they would go and say. Now, in the case of the Direct, in here, this one I gotta say is very doubtful. Like, I honestly question where they get their information from, because what they're saying here is apparently from an insider named Daniel Richmond, and he posted it on his Patreon. So I'm just gonna go on the link. Okay, now this I gotta say over here, this is very suspicious. This raises a lot of weird questions over here. Like, I don't know. Like, I love Patreon. It's a big part of my business. But I don't know if I would use Patreon as a news source where I would get my information for movie news. That just sounds pretty weird. Especially with right over here that Daniel Richmond is putting up a paywall to let us know what the fridge are they talking about. I don't know, man. That just feels massively suspicious. Like, already this is just one big sus over here. But then again, I will say, maybe it's not necessarily as sus as Giant Freaking Robot, in which they stated in their first paragraph, our trusted and proven sources tell us that Universal is developing a live-action entry in the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. Okay, who is your trusted and proven sources, though? Okay, good thing they got a link over here. Let's go and see what it is. Let's see. What is your source? Oh, it's just... Okay, so it's a link. Apparently, it says that it's confirmed. So, yeah, they just say that, oh, yeah, no, it's confirmed that we said so. And they try to say, like, they are, they're trying to sell that they are trustworthy and that they're credited in national publications like the New York Times, the Hollywood Reporter, Times, CNN, Variety, and stuff like that. Okay, that's interesting. But then you go down onto like, okay, these are the confirmed stories that they got. Notice how none of them over here seems to be the How to Train Your Dragon story. So honestly, what they are suggesting here is when they say our trusted and proven sources, they're just saying, trust me, bro. That's literally it. Like, where's your sources? Oh, we are the sources. What? Like, okay, honestly, that is like, this is a one big, like this right here already in my mind. It's just like, they're already like, sound the alarms. There's something suspicious going on here. We need to press that button and figure out who the fridge is the imposter. Like, okay, so already that is something that does take away a lot of legitimacy here. There's no legitimate source that they are proving in Giant Freaking Robot because they're saying to trust them. And even in direct, they're saying that they got their source on Patreon. And that's it. Which honestly makes this extremely questionable if this would actually be true or not. But then there is step number 3. And step number 3 is actually in regards to the news itself. We've already looked into the source. We've looked into the source of the source. Now it's time to think about the news itself. The fact that they are going to make a How to Train Your Dragon live action movie. Now, one thing I will say is that amongst all the 3 steps, this one might be the most credible because it is true that Hollywood can have a history of making some very stupid ideas come to life. Even things that nobody has really asked for, and they would just go and immediately do it anyways. So honestly, yeah, there could be a possibility that Universal would go and make a live action How to Train Your Dragon. But let's look into the credibility of that. And let's actually go and look into what they would want to go and do or how it's actually reported. Because one thing that is oddly suspicious is about opening the possibility that this is either a remake or that this is a continuation. Which honestly, in that regard, makes absolutely no sense. If they want to go and make a continuation, then why not just make another animated film? Why suddenly make that weird switch into live action? And if this is going to be a remake of the 2010 movie, don't you think it's a little too early to go and remake that film? Because when you would go and remake something or you would reboot something, it would be based on a franchise that is at least 20 years old. Because even when you think about like the Disney live action remakes, the most recent film that they have remade was Mulan, and that was released back in 1998. So by the time the film was released, Mulan was about 22 years old. And I mean, as of right now, How to Train Your Dragon is actually, or at least about to be 13 years old. And I feel like that would be way too early to go and suddenly decide, hey, let's go and actually remake How to Train Your Dragon. That feels a little bit off right over there. And also, even though that they have reported that Dean DeBlois is going to be involved, one thing that's also very questionable, notice that neither in the direct or Giant Freaking Robot that they've never mentioned the involvement of DreamWorks Animation. You'd think DreamWorks would go and lend a hand to go and assist the team to go and create this How to Train Your Dragon movie. Maybe not necessarily to go and provide the visuals or anything like that, but at the very least to be creative consultants. Like, what is DreamWorks Animation's role in this when they are the creators of How to Train Your Dragon? The way that these articles are structured and stuff like that, from there, it just makes it absolutely suspicious. It makes it extremely doubtful. So, when taking on those 3 accounts, on the fact that the source, we have no idea who these sources are, the sources of the sources are massively suspicious, and that the information itself is kind of weirdly executed, overall, it's from those three reasons why I feel like right now I would have to place that as a rumor. Now, I'm not going to deny it immediately. I just feel very doubtful. I'm just extremely skeptical about the news that they are provided over here. Now, granted, I will say that there is that small chance that it could turn out to be true. Because it does happen when you got this one weird random website giving us some information, and then later on, we learn that it turns out to be true. That's what I've experienced during last summer. You probably remember the reports when this one random website came in and stated that Jared Leto and Jamie Lee Curtis are going to be in the Haunted Mansion reboot, where they're going to be playing the Hatbox Ghost and Madame Leota respectively. And I was extremely doubtful of that. I was thinking there could be no way Disney would do such a stupid decision with Jared Leto. But then later on, it turns out to be true. Apparently it was actually confirmed that they would indeed do that. And while I'm not 100% sure about Jared Leto as the Hatbox Ghost, I think they did show that in clips of D23. They did confirm Jamie Lee Curtis would be Madame Leota. So there is that possibility that maybe the direct and Giant Freaking Robot could actually tell the truth about this. But in this current position right now, in the way that they've distributed all this, honestly, we can only consider that a rumor, where maybe there's that chance that it is true, but I just feel massively skeptical about it. I'm not going to comment on anything about this until there is a confirmation from Universal themselves or from an actual reliable news source like Variety, Deadline, and The Hollywood Reporter. And that's another major key. Notice how none of those trusted news sources ever talked about a live action How to Train Your Dragon movie. That's another thing that should sound the alarms that maybe something's a little bit suspicious. So that's another thing to go and keep in mind about all this. So hopefully, with this information, that you can all hopefully you will all go and actually use that so that you can go and determine if if whatever news that you would hear on social media, you would go and actually determine if it's like legit, or if it's doubtful, or if it's a flat out lie. Because I know that it is pretty tough to do so, especially in this age on the internet, when mom mentality just mom mentality can happen so quickly, where everybody just wants to jump on the bandwagon so that they can react the same way as everyone else does. That with the internet, people just want to be first to go and have their response be seen. Like, it encourages people to act before they think. And unfortunately, this happens to the best of us. It happens to everyone. And even I'm guilty a few times in my past that I've done that as well. But if you do keep in mind the three simple steps to go and determine if an article or a story is actually true, if it's actually false, or if it's just questionable, then you should be fine. And that's one thing I hopefully you will all go and carry this lesson, and that you'll be able to think for yourselves instead of like copy pasting some opinion that you've gotten from some influencer or whatever. So just to let you know on that. All right. So with that said and done, now that we have practiced a little bit on this How to Train Your Dragon story, I want to ask you all, what do you think about the legitimacy of this? Do you think it's true? Do you think it's fake? Or do you think it's questionable? Let me know your thoughts on this. Let's see now. Remake this, remake that. How about you remake some life choices if you just decide to spread lies on the internet? While there is a very small chance that this is actually true, I feel very doubtful even then, especially when compared to the Disney movies that have gotten live action remakes. How to Train Your Dragon is way too recent to make a live action remake of. Whether I see any story with barely credible sources, all they make me think of is that one Maxor clip. My source is that I made it the hell up. Exactly. So we got one that's very doubtful, but leaning more towards fake. Okay, let's see now. My reaction to this article is, what? I enjoy the How to Train Your Dragon movies, but I'm not like a diehard fan of them. And hearing about this just sounds crazy. I've never heard of Giant Freaking Robot nor the direct. I don't think that this would be a good idea, nor would this actually happen. I think this is going to be a continuation that's fine. If this is a remake, then I feel like Universal and DreamWorks are trying to copy Disney with their live-action reboots and end up as crap. Okay? I honestly do not believe this story. I have honestly never heard of any of these sites, whether it be them not being a reliable source, nor getting it from major websites, nor or not mentioning DreamWorks Animation. I honestly have my doubts that this is true. And besides, I honestly don't want a live-action How to Train Your Dragon live-action movie. We've already had one company making live-action remakes of classic animated properties. We don't need two. Right? Let's see. You know, I remember in high school, I remember in high school, English teachers and their librarians taught us dumb teenagers how to look for sources. College further emphasizes the need to look for reliable sources when doing papers. It feels like the idea of citing reliable sources has left people's mindset after high school or college. So yeah, I should assume it was fake based on the fact that the franchise is only 13 years old. 20 years or older is usually a remake phase. This has been a good thought experiment. Or a good thought experiment. Exactly. You know, and there's also another incident I remember where a lot of people fell for it, but I knew on the spot that it was bullcrap. I remember on Twitter, there was this one kid who would go and say that apparently a rumor's going around that Bob Iger is going to revive Blue Sky Studios. You know, and I was very suspicious because it was like only on Twitter that they said so, and that the person did not respond to any sources. And when you would go and ask the person, okay, what's your source? The person would legit respond, well, it's my theory. So literally, you got this 14-year-old kid who labels their theory as rumors and spreading just flat out bullcrap about apparently, well, Bob Iger's back at Disney, so that must mean they must revive Blue Sky Studios. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's a prominent, unfortunate example how so many people bought into it, because it did end up collecting thousands of likes, and it made people just like act before they would think. They didn't realize, yeah, maybe, like, you know, maybe that doesn't make sense. Maybe that's not actually true. And especially with the wording on it, like, you know, like calling your theory a rumor is a flat out lie, because saying that it's a rumor means that you must have some form of source that that would actually be brought out. But no, in reality, they just literally made it up. Let's see now. I think I'll read one more comment before we cap this off. I honestly do not believe that. Oh no, I know. I've already read that one. Excuse moi. Let's see. What other comments do we have? I think I'll read two. Actually, I'll go. There's one short one. I'll read two. I feel very doubtful for this. I don't think a How to Train Your Dragon live action film would happen. Even since I have never heard of these sources, though I could be proven wrong. But I still have that. I still have doubts. I wouldn't make that past mistake of whether I would believe the stuff I hear, even with the cancel culture mania thing and fandom menace insanity. Right? By the way, if you guys haven't watched Max Store, then I would gladly recommend him. His videos are funny as hell and very well edited. All right, so that's a nice little plug-in. And with that said, that should do it for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. Thank you all so much for joining me on this. It's been one heck of a ride so far. And tune in next week for more crazy stories that are going to be happening in AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. So with all that said and done, I would like to say thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for watching. And also, don't forget to go and subscribe to my Twitch channel, AniMat Live, and to the AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast YouTube channel. And also, don't forget to go and follow me on whatever podcast service you would go and listen to, whether it be on Spotify, Amazon, Google Play, or iTunes. So, once again, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, see you later, dudes!